So Jay, you are live.
Okay, thanks for being here, everybody. It is March the 14th, 2024, 5:34 p.m., and we are calling this meeting to order for the Annapolis Conservancy Board's March meeting. Um, our first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from our January meeting that were sent by the city. Thank you, Racine. We had a few last meeting. If you remember, we met in person. We had a few members of the public that sat in and had some comments for us. We formed the new easement committee and talked a bit about that. We had Karen graciously volunteer to be the lead on the Conservancy Board's goals for water quality and improving water quality. So I'm not sure if everyone had a chance to read through the meeting minutes, but I would like to move to approve the meeting minutes unless there is discussion.
I have just one correction, I think.
Sure.
Um, so where it says under 3 duties and goals, I think instead of solicit the dedication of properties real and personal to the city, we wouldn't be soliciting personal property. So I would just get rid of the reference to real and personal and just solicit the dedication of properties.
Okay. I think that was actually written in the code. That's
Oh,
that's how it's written, but I understand that, right? An easement doesn't constitute real property, right?
are we supposed to solicit cars for donations so we can raise money? No, I'm sorry. Just
Yeah, I mean, we could, we could branch out a little bit.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, I'll make
removing
that
real and
change.
personal.
I'll make that change and send the meeting minutes out again. And November 9th, I think, 2023, those meeting minutes have not been approved yet.
Oh, right, because we did not have enough people at our last meeting.
Correct. And
Thank you.
my understanding, Karen wasn't there, so she wouldn't be able to vote on those meeting minutes either.
Okay, but we have three. We have myself, Patrick, and Linda, right?
Well, I don't think I wasn't at the November meeting or the January
Oh,
meeting.
well, Racine, thank you for bringing that up. It sounds like we will also defer voting on approving the meeting minutes for November and push that to our next meeting in May.
Can I just ask a procedural question of, is it really prohibited from voting on meeting minutes when you weren't in attendance? I think I kind of thought of it was more of a courtesy. So like, I mean, if we're going to end up in this problem where we like never have a quorum to vote on them because some of us weren't there and then people who were there have stepped down or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe we should just go ahead and approve them as long as it's not in violation of anything.
That's a good point. I've always abstained when I wasn't present for this board or other boards, but I didn't know if that's a good point. I don't know if that was necessary or just like a kind of etiquette.
I actually don't know myself. I've usually watched folks abstain too. I don't know. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Karen. I guess you would need the exact people from the meeting whose minutes you're trying to approve to be present at the approving session. I actually don't know. I could check the rules real quick if you guys wouldn't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Trip. That would be great. I think for now maybe we just kind of forge ahead. The meeting minutes aren't going anywhere, and I don't know that our approval of them, has a big impact on the rest of the business that we have to get through.
We could go ahead and approve the meeting minutes from last meeting. I'll
Okay.
move that we approve those with the suggested change.
A second.
All right, all in favor of approving meeting minutes with the suggested change from January?
Aye.
Here. That's 3 yays and Patrick abstained. All right, on to our duties and 2024 goals now. So we're going to retitle this Solicit the Dedication of Properties to the City, striking real and personal. That change here. So working with CityJS, I think under here, Linda, I think this is a good time to talk about our new easement subcommittee because that fits under this duty. And I'll start, Linda, and if you have anything to add, please feel free to jump in. So Linda and I met in February following our January meeting and talked about, strategies for soliciting new properties, specifically, how can we use the information that, the institutional knowledge that the board has, the data that was collected as part of the 2040 comprehensive plan. I know we have discussed that previously with the potential new easements map that was shown. So we got access to the city's GIS data for this, and we're able to view that in GIS. We're not able to manipulate that at all, so we really just can look at it. So I've actually got a note out to Sean at the city to hopefully get some clarification on how we can access this data and be able to use it a little bit more. I really would like to have like a database that we can kind of maintain and be able to discuss as a group. But so Linda and I met and we talked about a bunch of things, including another tool called ParkServe, which is from the Trust for Public Land. And there's actually ParkServe, Linda, if you wouldn't mind giving us just a really quick background on what the ParkServe tool was designed to do and how we could maybe use it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you can go on for any city and see where there are basically gaps in parks. So like a 10-minute walk is the standard. So it'll pop out like in Annapolis if there are areas of the city where there's you're not within a 10-minute walk of a park. And you can look at different statistics, based on age and different socioeconomic factors.
Thanks, Linda. And yeah, that really came up because we were talking about, when looking at potential new easements that we'd like to pursue to dedicate to the city, what is the criteria that we're using for that? Does it have natural resource value? Does it have, recreation value, probably passive recreation value? Is it close to a park? Are there no easements in that general area and that we want to, encourage more green space in a particular area of the city? So between this ParkServe tool and the city's GIS data, we're going to forge ahead and try to identify at least one or more easements that we'd like to pursue to dedicate to the city. And the other thing I'll say here is that I think we would really, Linda and I, our subcommittee would really appreciate any institutional knowledge on, potential new easements. And we discussed this a bit as well. And Karen, I don't want to single you out, but I kind of am with, how helpful you've been with the institutional knowledge that you have about, easements that may have come up in discussion, but never, weren't followed through on. Or if there's, we talked about I guess it's the property at the headwaters of College Creek. And so I think if there's any ideas on the broader board about new easements that we could pursue, based on knowledge that individual board members have, that could be very helpful in, helping us to prioritize a new easement area. So I think as far as actions go, I will send out, and I'm going to make a note real quick. I will send out an email to the board requesting any kind of input on potential new easements. And I think the goal here is to develop a set of criteria and basically be able to build a matrix of, how close is it to a park? Maybe, I don't know if demographic information plays a part in this, but, are there natural resource values? Is there potential for water quality improvement? Have these different criteria and be able to assign values to them for different easement areas and get an overall score as sort of like a weighted average to be able to help prioritize. Because this map, I'm going to share my screen really quickly. this map is wonderful. This is showing the potential easements, which are this dark green layer, and the crowd reporter easement areas for potential easements. Which was done, I think, as part of the 2040 plan, but I also believe that this board was involved with the soliciting public input for potential new easement areas. So this is wonderful. The issue that I think we have is that, as a small group with limited resources, there's no way that we can pursue all of these. So how do we decide which one or ones may be most important? And I think that's kind of the goal here. So I'll follow up with everybody via email to request any input that you may have on potential new easement areas, but something that Linda and I are working on and we'll plan to meet on. I think, again, Linda, I'd like to meet again before our next meeting, especially after I can talk with Sean at the city and get some more discussion going and take some action there. So that's all I have for that. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
Just a question for you, Jack.
Yeah.
So this all makes sense. You're essentially trying to identify the best case easement scenario, and then I guess directly go to the current owner of the property and solicit. So direct solicitation, it sounds like.
Right. So as far
So-
as the strategy after identifying a potential new easement, I don't know that we have all those steps, figured out yet, but generally that would be, maybe in partnership with the city, working with the city. I'd be happy to hear anyone else's thoughts on what the next steps would be once we did identify one or more potential new easement areas.
I guess my only concern is if we identify 2 or 3 really prime spots, the people who own the land might have just no interest in it and,
Right.
convey.
That happens all the time. Yeah, that's happens, I'm sure, with Linda's work and in my professional work as well. There's a lot
So-
of times you just don't
So
have
since we only have so much time and resources, would there be a way we could try and filter out or even narrow the field of possibilities to kind of know, okay, these properties are associated with maybe certain organizations, like already owned by certain maybe nonprofits, or I don't know how you could do that, but
Well, yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
suggestion.
it's sort of the human knowledge element of, like, I think Trudy has some idea, like, there's gonna be people that know people.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the human interface. You can do all of the criteria and the ranking and stuff, but you also have to kind of bring in the reality of, what is going on with that property. What does anyone know that landowner? What's their, future interest and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think definitely getting a list of, putting together a spreadsheet of these parcels or which parcels these potential easements are associated with and who owns them, I think would be a good first step. And Patrick, that brings up a good point of, it's kind of chicken or egg. Which do we want to do first? Do we want to prioritize which easements we want to pursue, or do we want to try to find someone who's interested in conserving part of their property?
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
Jack, I think on that map that you had pulled up,
yeah.
are you sure the dark green isn't existing easements?
The dark green is, at least on here, it's called potential easements revised. This green is called,
'Cause some of them seem like they're in places where we have existing easements. I don't
this
know.
green is called, so this is conservation easements,
Oh,
this
okay,
layer,
okay.
which that looks right. And then this is
Yeah.
potential easements.
I think
Yeah,
maybe,
this should
or
probably
maybe
be a
some of
different
them,
color. Sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
maybe some of them are ones that are coming with development that hasn't been developed yet or something. Because there's like that really big one at Crystal Spring
Right.
that is in process, I think, with Scenic Rivers Land Trust.
And so
I thought.
just for everybody, while we're here again, there's a table associated, there's data associated with what we're seeing here, these green polygons. And some of it's filled out. And actually, there's probably a lot of useful information that's already in this table critical area, private property, or there's some information here. There's some city property.
Sure.
So anyway, I think we already have some information. And with Patrick's comment about, which should we do first, and should we, potentially try to identify a landowner that's willing or wants to conserve part of their property, that might be a better first step. I mean, I'm definitely open to the most efficient path to soliciting the dedication of properties to the city.
I mean, also I see Kingsport in this dark green, so which is definitely already established. So
You gotta change the coloring
name-
of the potentials.
yeah. Maybe that's why, because it's the same color. Okay, I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah, that's
All right.
that's
Sorry.
conservation easement. Yeah,
Sorry, I'm getting confused.
it is understandable.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that, like, another way that we can move this forward, in addition to having or thinking about reaching out to individual owners, is also just to keep an eye on development and making sure that any development that might impact these areas, that we are bringing it to the attention of the city, so that they can try to make conservation part of that process. And I think that's why we're having Racine send us the list of developments proposals now.
Yes, Racine, thank you very much. I saw that list that you sent earlier. I hadn't had a chance to digest it yet, but that was really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's got much more information than you need, because you get single family dwellings that are going in, as well as larger developments, and other smaller projects. But I mean, there's information about large developments and the larger developments, like villages at Providence Point used to be Silver Spring. What was it? You called it, Karen?
Oh, Crystal
Crystal
Spring.
Spring,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Crystal
Sorry, I
Spring.
forgot that the name
Right,
changed.
right. There's a conservation easement on that one. The new development that's on Forest Drive, Parkside Preserve, there's conservation easement there. And I believe the development that it's renamed Athens. It was Rocky Gorge. I believe there's a conservation easement going there. And there's I forget the road that it's on, but there is a retirement development that's going in, and I believe there's going to be a conservation easement on that property.
I think that's Bay Village 2. Is that
Is that okay?
Is that the one? I think.
Okay. But I mean, the information is there. And if you need to look anything up, there are reference numbers, and you can go into eTrack it. None of these have been put into EnerGov yet. So eTrack it is still your place to go to get information.
Thanks, Racine. And on that note, I know that the city's kind of transitioning the system that they're using. Is there anything about the time? It sounds like we can still use the eTrack it system for permitting and things like that, but
yeah.
Okay.
Well, it went live in January. So it hasn't been online for long. I think it went, or was it last year? It was last year. It went online. So they've only put in new projects since it went online last year. So like Rocky Gorge, which is now Athens, is already in eTrack it, and they're not going to put it in EnerGov. So, just new developments and new construction since, and Ashley, do you know when they went live? Was it last year, January or February?
It's been a bit. I think if you go onto the website, I was just trying to look for it. It tells you, it's like if you go to the permit webpage, it tells you the date for when you go one way or the other, and then it gives you the link for each one. Because
Okay.
yes, they're still running both.
Right. And I mean, there's are some glitches in the new system and they're still working through that as well. And having to train people, staff on EnerGov. So it's being phased in, it's being used, but not for projects that were already in the Track It system.
Oh yeah, so it's the date is January 10th, 2023. So if it was before January 10th, 2023, then it's going to be on eTrackIt. If it's after that date, it'll be on the new EnerGov hub that they call it.
Okay.
Well, they call it the Citizen Self-Service Portal, CSS. But yeah, so if you go to like the permits page for like planning and zoning, they have like a forms, permits, and licensing webpage. It'll give you the link to both. So depending on the date, you can go one way or the other.
Oh, that's helpful that they're both in one spot, because I was thinking like we'll have to think about when something was submitted and then which tool to use to look up information.
Yeah, it's on they give you the link on the same one. So
okay, perfect.
And
Great.
then you can always ask, like, most of the planning staff, sometimes I know we know which way they're going, so you can always ask.
Thanks, Ashley, and Marcine. That it's really helpful. Okay. I think we can continue moving unless anyone has any more discussion. Next on here, and I think this might be, at our January meeting, we brought this up and it sounded like there wasn't any update and that we maybe should not expect an update, but the MOU with the county in regards to the program open space funding kind of share situation. I think, Karen, we talked about this at our January meeting and it sounded like we shouldn't really expect to hear an update because the county has been kind of radio silent, or I don't know what the situation was, but.
I think probably at this point, as a board, we should decide if we want to continue to advocate for this or not. And I mean, if it's helpful, I can go through the background again of why we got involved. But
well, it was because the city was small enough that the funding that they received wasn't significant to be able to do much with, right? And it was basically flowing to the county, who was using program open space funding.
The thing is that, yeah, no, that's true. I mean, the funding comes via the county, and so the county ultimately has control. So what originally brought this issue up was when the county was saying no to requests by the city to use that money, because it was a time where the administrations didn't like each other. So we suggested an MOU be formalized so that couldn't happen in the future. But I mean, it was basically, I don't know, it was like Josh Cohen's administration where we started this. So it's been a long time. And the problem is that since then, the county and the city have been working together fine. So nobody thinks of it as a priority because they're like, why do we need this? Like we get along just fine. So I don't know if it's really, I don't know, I guess, after having spun our wheels on it for so long, I don't know if it's really worth it anymore or not. But I will say the property that originally was the one requested to go, to have funding from program open space to preserve it has now been developed. So it was lost ultimately because the county said no. So these things do happen, I guess. It hasn't happened for a long time though. So I don't know. It's just something maybe worth discussing whether we want to worry about it or not anymore. Because we could continue to advocate for it, or we could just say, obviously nobody cares enough and it's wasting a lot of our time. Maybe it's not worth it.
From what Karen, was there something that was drafted? I mean, like, is there a blueprint for this, or is it just an idea?
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I think I dropped the ball. I think I was supposed to send Racine, um, and maybe the whole board and Racine what was drafted before,
Okay.
and I forgot that. So I apologize. That's my bad. Yeah, because there was something drafted um previously, yeah, an agreement.
Yeah, hey, Jack, this is Jackie. I just joined you from the Environmental Committee.
Hi, Jackie.
Yeah, I remember hey, when I came on board in 2018, there was a document. And the county was talking to us back then, but it's kind of faded. But we can take.
We lost you there for a second, Jackie, but
I think she's familiar with it.
I drafted it.
That's what I thought, Ashley.
I drafted it. And yeah, I mean, the problem is legally, we don't have, as a municipality, we don't have any legal rights to the state POS funding. So
Right.
it doesn't give us a lot of leverage.
Right.
But yeah, I did draft it, and it's been presented to the county, but it's never kind of been a priority, because the problem is, if they do it for us, in theory, then they might have to do it for other municipalities within the county as well, because the county as a whole controls all of the money for all of Anne Arundel County. So I don't know if this is the case or not, but it does open the door that if they do, an MOU with us, then, a next town over might want one too, and another one. And so it's just never been sort of a super popular idea with the county, as far as I can tell. But I do have the draft, and I can share it.
okay.
I just don't know how far it'll get, because, like I said, it's been like 6-ish years, 7-ish years since I drafted something.
Okay, that's all really helpful background. I just Googled municipalities in Anne Arundel. It says Anne Arundel has only 2 municipalities, Annapolis
That's what I was just gonna say.
and Highland Beach.
Yeah.
So we might not have too much competition, but that is good to keep in mind that, it could open the door for, I don't know, other places in the county. But it sounds like it's just Highland Beach and Annapolis that are the only incorporated municipalities.
That's correct.
So
That's my recollection.
So is there a motion to make that we pursue this, the action for Karen to recirculate the language that Ashley had written? And, I'm not sure the formal channel it needs to take to go to either the county council or the county's office of law or county executive's office, but what do we feel is the best step to take here if we agree that we want to pursue this or continue to pursue it? Do we need to move? Make a motion?
I don't know I mean, I don't know if we necessarily have to make a motion. Or we could continue discussing it.
Is someone from the city, I mean, either maybe, I guess, Trip or Ashley, is there a way to get clarification on how the process would work, who it needs to go to at the county? If that's no, or
Well, I mean, I have sent it over to the county multiple times. So I've sent
Okay.
it to their law office, and it would also be their Department of Recreation and Parks, which, just like our Department of Recreation and Parks, generally control the POS funds. You might want to, I don't know if Director Johnson would want to come on, but our Director of Recreation and Parks, Director Johnson, has used POS funds since she's been here, which has been about like a year and a half. So it needs to be a discussion between the two departments of Recreation and Park, generally speaking, because those are the using departments, so to
Okay.
speak.
That's also really helpful. We have not had
And that's-
Director Johnson speak yet, and I haven't met her personally.
And that's sort of been part of the reason why it's lingered for so long is that people change all positions all the time. You know what I mean? Like administrations change, staff change. And so like every time there's a new person in charge of a park and rec on either the city or the county's part, then it needs to be started over. Like the discussions get started over. Whenever the administrations change, the discussion gets started over.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's part of the reason why it's lingered so long.
we did just use POS funds though on the Cars Beach.
Elktonia, right?
Yeah, the Elktonia Beach.
Yeah.
And that was a collaboration between the two departments of recreation and parks. So they did collaborate on that.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
it
there's
was-
no doubt there's like, I mean, there was also things done under when Mike Panalese was mayor and Steve Shue was county exec, like this there was sharing as well. That's why I was
Yeah.
kind of saying like what I was saying about like, you know, it hasn't really been a priority because in recent years there hasn't been an issue like this. The city and the county have worked well together to preserve these
Yeah.
properties. So
I mean,
um,
it's not a big, it's for Karen, it's not a big lift for us to do. I mean, Ashley's got the bones of it there. And, there has been some turnover in the county executive staff. So if Ashley doesn't mind, I don't mind pursuing it and giving it a go and seeing if we can get something memorialized.
Thank you, Jackie. And I do think that this is something that's important because it would bring consistency across people changing positions, different administrations,
Right.
and however the Conservancy Board can help support it. I'm not sure exactly. It sounds like it's really between Rec and Parks for city and county and at that level. But yeah, I mean, I think this would be something good because in the future things may change, like Karen mentioned in the past, the two county administration and city administration didn't see eye to eye and they weren't
Right.
getting along. So I think this would be a good way to bring that kind of consistency.
Well, that's the whole point. It's like, we're all getting along fine right now. Everything's going fine right now, but it may not be all so jolly in the future. You could have Dems and Republicans again, in office. And that's why you do these things. Just so everyone, so
Agreed.
we can get that's the will of the board. You let us know what you want to do.
I think it's a worthwhile effort, and it sounds like we've got the language drafted. So, however we can support the effort, I don't clearly see like a step that the board could take, but I personally am in support of it and would be interested to hear others, support. I don't know if we need to make a motion, but I think this is a worthwhile thing to pursue.
yeah, I mean, I've always, obviously, I always have advocated for it, but
Thank you, Karen.
I didn't want to waste anybody else's time if everybody decided it wasn't worth it anymore. But
Well, I guess the action, I'll keep this on our agenda, and Ashley and Jackie, I will send you an email. I would really like to have Director Johnson come and meet the Conservancy Board, maybe at our next meeting or sometime in the near future, and see how we can, support what Parks and Recreation is doing with what the Conservancy Board is doing. I think there's room for collaboration there. So
Yeah. I mean, did you guys talk about Cars Beach, Elktonia, Sparrows Beach conservation easement for that yet?
we've not today. We've mentioned it
Okay.
before. I'd have to look in my notes what our kind of thoughts were about that. I think because it was purchased with program open space money, it effectively is
Right.
protected from development. It's not a
Right.
conservation easement, but and Linda might have some input here with her knowledge of program open space stuff, but
Yeah, I think since program open space was involved, and I don't know if DNR directly put their, a portion of their funds, program open space funds in too, but if it has federal funding in it, conservation funding, there's likely a lot of language in the deeds then.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't looked at those deeds. Ashley may have, but I'm sure it does. So, I mean, but it's one to mark like this is a conserved area, just in the portfolio of conserved areas.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I know, and Rosalind Johnson is putting together a master plan for that park. And
Great.
especially now to include the Moore property that they acquired next door.
Right.
So it's a much larger property, and they have a guy who's pretty prominent who does some designs with Central Park, I believe, things like that. He's an African American gentleman, and because he wants to be, involved with the Blacks of the Chesapeake Heritage, because they will occupy that building on the Moore property. So she'll have a master plan for that, but also Rec and Parks is putting together a whole master plan for Rec and Parks. And I've spoke to Rosalind about, putting conservation easements on other park properties. So that will be interesting to see their whole master plan, on some things that are ball fields and things like that we want to see them develop further.
Well, that's definitely, I would say that's definitely of interest to the Conservancy Board if there's a, a citywide parks master plan. So Jackie,
She hasn't started it yet. I know she is funding, or she's getting funding. I don't know how far along she is with that. So I think the whole Cars Beach, Sparrows Point thing kind of leapfrogged it, got in front. But it's really important to do, because our master plan for the city Rec and Parks, I think, goes back to like 2008. And you need one for, it helps tremendously for certain grant funds. Like they're like, do you have a Rec and Parks master plan? And so she understands the importance of getting it not only for her own planning, but other departments need it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, maybe I can just send an email to Director Johnson to introduce myself and, see if she may be able to attend one of our meetings in the future.
Yeah, how you guys can work with her and support her, and how she, she's not thinking about the conservation part of it when she's doing her planning. So that'd be good to get in front of her.
Sorry, just making a note real quick to take that action.
And yeah, all those deeds for cars in Elktonian do have restriction language in them.
Thanks, Ashley. That's good to know.
Right.
All right. I think we can continue moving through our agenda here. Under our second duty, administer and manage said properties. I know there's something to discuss here with Office of Law. I think specifically with Ashley, there was a discussion came up about the Gardens of Annapolis easement. And Karen, thank you for reminding me so that we got this on the agenda for tonight. So this is somewhere that I'll give my very brief background that I know that we believe there was an easement, but in fact there is not an easement, and that's about all that I know.
Yeah, it's a property that it has easement signs up on it, and we've been monitoring it as a city held easement since, I don't know, the board's been monitoring it since before I joined the board, which was in 2007. So the city's thought that there was an easement, or this board at least has thought that there was an easement there for a long time. But recently Diane Butler, I guess, was trying to get information about the easement because they were going to do some ivy removal there, I think. And then when the city staff started doing some digging into the deed records, it turned out that an easement was never recorded there. So my question was just if we can, since it seems like everybody thinks it's an easement anyway, the board thinks it's an easement, the city thought it was an easement, property owner, I assume, thinks it's an easement because we've talked to them about maintaining that easement in the past when there's been issues with it, invasive species and stuff there. So they think it's an easement. We have signs up that it's an easement on at the property. So it seems like hopefully if there's not, if it's correct that nothing was ever recorded, that hopefully we could get something recorded quickly. That's was my question, I guess, and hope.
Thank you, Karen. And actually, I just pulled up real quickly on the GIS. This is the Gardens. I think this is the right one. The Gardens of Annapolis. It's right over on Edgewood Road behind the giant shopping center. So that shows up here under conservation easements. So I'm not sure. So
I think Ashley said that she could help us with that. I don't know if there's something we can do to help, like if it would be helpful for us to reach out to the property owner or first or anything. I don't know, Ashley, what your thoughts are.
Well, before Ashley chimes in, I guess I'll just give my piece on this. Karen, unfortunately, I checked the land records dating back, for this property at least, dating back like 25 years before the development occurred. I did it multiple times in hopes I would find something, and it just wasn't there. I also checked the planning and zoning's record just to see if maybe it was the case that an easement agreement was actually executed but never recorded. And unfortunately, I just couldn't find anything there either, which led me to kind of wonder how the city's maps identified it and detailed it, because someone somewhere created this, what Jack's looking at right now, this space. I mean, it's consistent with the development plans, and those plans show a proposed easement. So at the very least, it was considered. I'm disappointed that somewhere along the lines, the proposed easement all of a sudden turned into a, seemingly, oh, we have an easement now. And unfortunately, that just doesn't seem to have been the case. In terms of getting one, I candidly, I'd probably defer to Ashley. It's optimistic to hear that you guys have, in some form or fashion, spoken with property owners, because everyone seemed to think there was an easement. But personally, I just couldn't tell you how they would receive an offer, rather, or some sort of proposal to get them to sign some sort of, easement that will ultimately be recorded.
I mean, legally, if it's part of how they got the approvals, is it accurate to say, it doesn't look like this ever got recorded, but it was part of the approval process. We'd like to go ahead and get it recorded now. I mean,
We can, but legally it's a gray area, to be honest.
I was going to say, you'd think so, like immediately after the development was approved, maybe, but having had 20 years go by, it just doesn't carry the same weight as it once did. Honestly, I'd have to take a look at the specifics of the local Board of Appeals approval. Nothing stood out the first time. It referenced something like the development's got to be in accordance with the forest conservation plans, and in the forest conservation plans there existed this proposed easement. But even then, that chain of what is required and what is not isn't as firm as we are requiring this easement to exist for this development to occur. That's what I saw anyways.
So our options here is the no action alternative, which is there is no easement, but it kind of looks like there is based on the information that we have. And it sounds like we've been treating it as an easement. As far as the Conservancy Board goes, we've been treating it as an easement and inspecting it. So the do nothing alternative is to do nothing, and maybe it will just stay. It looks like it's just trees right now. It doesn't look like there's anything else really there. Some phragmites.
There's a wetland in there.
So, or, alternative one is, reach out to the property owner with, an introduction of what's going on and request, their concurrence on recording an easement there. Which would take a little bit of effort, I'm sure. or it gets removed from the list of potential easements in the city. And in a perfect world, we would, I think the best thing to do would be to pursue the property owner and say, hey, can we get this easement recorded? We agreed to this when the development went in, but like Tripp identified it, that's a lot easier said than done.
We can always ask. I mean, I would advocate that we ask.
Okay.
We just say it's accurate, I think, to say that, we're going through a process of organizing our records. Patrick is spearheading that, and just, we didn't find a deed that was recorded.
Okay. And then and Linda, and under that, it's not the Conservancy board reaching out. Would it be the city reaching out? I mean, I can send an email or call if I can find contact information for the property owner. I just don't know how much, and say that, I'm on this city board and commission. And
Is there a preference? I mean, I think it's within our duties to have contact with landowners, and we're setting ourselves up to engage in, some outreach to new landowners. So if that is accurate to say, then I would just suggest we figure out who the owner contact is, and unless the attorneys want to do it, that's fine too, obviously. But
okay.
Attorneys usually scare people.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a low key, I think, like you said, it's a little bit of a gray area. So we're not, coming in with force. We're just
Right.
You could always have someone from like planning and zoning help you do it. I'm trying to think. Eric Lashinsky is usually pretty good at this sort of stuff. You could always have him sort of help. I mean, I'm happy to help, but if you lead with an attorney, people tend to get a little
I'm happy to do it, Jack.
Yeah, I've seen a problem with it being from this board saying, like, as you said, for cleaning up the records, we see this was supposed to be recorded. It was not, do we have your help in doing it? And they can always just say, no, forget it. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
And then we say, we got Ashley on the case. Just kidding.
Hey, Tripp.
Okay, so Linda, thank you. That would be great. So, and if you need help trying to find some contact information, I can help do some digging as well. But I think that sounds like a good tack to take, and at least initiate a conversation with Gardens of Annapolis.
Okay.
About this. That's great. Thank you.
And Tripp, did I hear correctly? Did you find a recorded plat that actually had like forest conservation?
I didn't find any recorded plat, no. I was looking at the plans submitted in association with the special exception they needed in order to develop it. I actually checked the plat books as well. This property was never subdivided, so there was no subdivision plat.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the action there is Linda taking the lead with reaching out. And Linda, if you need any support, please give me a call or shoot me an email. And we'll look forward. I'm sure we'll talk about this at our next meeting.
This whole situation makes me wonder about our other easements and whether we need to start going through, or is that, I don't know if that's part of what.
So yeah, I went through them all, and we can kind of I can give you a high level review, Jack, whenever you want me to go ahead and do that. But
yeah, Patrick, I think now would be the perfect time.
All right.
Well,
so
before you do that, can I just mention one that came up recently? It's not on your list, but the Scenic Rivers Land Trust approached me about getting funds to put a conservation easement on the St. Luke's conservation project. I mean, what do they call that?
Right.
Whatever.
Yep.
They have a name. They have a name for their project they did, their stormwater restoration project they did on the St. Luke's Church property in Eastport.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to put a conservation easement on that piece of their property. And so Scenic Rivers Land Trust agreed to hold the easement. And they were looking for funding to cover easement costs like boundary surveys, some of their legal costs, etc., and came to the city. And we do have, because we used to have a big pot of money in our critical area fee in lieu, that because it was so restricted we couldn't use it. We had like $80,000 in there. We did enter into an agreement some years ago for an expanded use of the critical area fee in lieu. And one of those uses was to do boundary surveys and other things, legal things and maintenance and et cetera, on for conservation easements, including to develop third-party partnerships on private property to do them. So after I looked into it, it was a legitimate use of funds we could do, but we really didn't have enough funds right now. They were all committed because of the expanded use. Brian Adams, our forester, has been making use of those funds. He can do more plannings than he used to be able to, that is. So I told Sarah Nicole, the executive director, we don't have the money there now, but you could check in with us later. I also told her about, other grant funds that the city has, like community grants that you can look into. You can get like $5,000 in community grants for things like this. And I encourage you to so you know,
Sorry,
Jackie, you broke up a little
breaking
bit there.
up for me. I don't know about everybody else. Were you
Yeah.
able to hear that?
No, Jackie, you were breaking up a little bit at the end there.
Oh, I just wanted you guys just to have it on your radar. It wouldn't be, a city easement. It would be held by the Scenic Rivers Land Trust, but I just wanted it on your radar that they're looking to do that on a private piece of property that is within city limits.
Thank you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, and
All right.
I remember this came up like I think a few months ago because you're right, there's no easement on that St. Luke's project, which is a wonderful piece of open
Yeah.
space right now, and I think that is concerning that there's not an easement there, and so it sounds like Scenic Rivers is pursuing that, and I don't know where they stand on having funding for recording the easement, but I can reach out to Scenic Rivers and see if there's any support that the Conservancy Board can provide, if you think that would be helpful.
Well, they're looking for money to do like their boundary survey, et cetera. And they had some other costs, legal costs, et cetera. And I told them that the city does have, I don't know if you heard this part, but they do have community grant. We do have community grants that range between $5,000 and $25,000, and they could cover something like this. But that grant period is closed right now. I told them, that's something they should consider to jump on in the future. I don't know how pressing this is, if they can wait. So, and I also
Okay.
said that funds do accumulate in our fee in lieu. It could be something that we think about conserving some funds for them, and that they should also be looking at other things, because I said, we're not going to cover your legal costs. It's probably something the city wouldn't cover, but we would look at like boundary survey, some other things like that. I also told them to check in with Underwood and see, I don't know if they did a sufficient like meets and bounds to be sufficient for a boundary survey, but they may have done something. So I told them to check in with Underwood, who did the work there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jackie. That's all really helpful background. Okay, great.
All right.
So, okay, so and using that as a segue with new easements or potential new easements and the existing easements, tying it back to the Gardens of Annapolis with the work that Patrick has done on looking at where we have these, we've been calling them data gaps, but basically where we don't currently have all of the information for all of the easements in the city. So Patrick, I will turn it over to you just for I think a high level rundown, and if we want more information, we can we can discuss at the next meeting or follow up.
Hey, Patrick, do you mind if I hop in real quick?
Sure.
Folks, I gotta head out. Karen, I checked the Robert's rules. That seems to suggest members who were absent at the meeting can actually vote on the meeting minutes nonetheless. So I didn't see anything that prohibited it anyways in our bylaws, so I think you guys would be good to go if you wanted to go take a crack at those meeting minutes. With that, I'll see you guys next time.
Trip coming in with a valuable nugget right at the end there. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I took a look at, well, here's one of the hard things is to figure out, we've got lots of differing information on how many easements we actually have, which easements we're supposed to be monitoring. So just for example, on our ACB website, lists about 19 conservation easements. The Annapolis Conservation Easement Map that's been circulated has 17 conservation easements. And then our ACB records that in our Google Drive has about 30 conservation easements. So one task is figuring out what is the true, list of conservation easements that we're supposed to be monitoring annually. So that in and of itself would be, I think, a task maybe a few of us could get together and kind of go through the records that I found and figure out, okay, these are ones we really need to focus on when maybe it is just 17, not 30. That was one major item I found, because when I'm doing my review, I was like, well, what am I supposed to be basing all this review off of? It was hard to find an official list. So then what I did is I cross-referenced each of my sources, and I found that we're missing either deed of easements or complete plat information for several easements, including the Gardens of Annapolis, Acton Lane, Annapolis Ridge, Annapolis Walk, Bloomsbury Square, Regatta Bay 2, Riders Glen, Georgetown Grove, Beechwood Hill, Bay Village, Regatta Bay, and Severn House. So all those easements I just listed either is missing a deed of easement, similar to what Gardens of Annapolis is missing, or missing a plat, or both. And I might have missed something in my review, so I think it might be helpful if somebody else kind of goes back, maybe gets together with me and we kind of go through everything together. Because when you're reviewing volumes of information, sometimes things go through the cracks, or maybe I wasn't looking in the right place for some of this information. But overall, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 conservation easements that are in our book somewhere, either in our records or on the website, that we don't have complete information on. So I don't know if it would be helpful to, as a next step, if someone else on the board gets together with me and we kind of go through the list that I've identified to see if we can find anything else, to figure out what next steps might be, or what we should do. So
Patrick, thank you. I think that's a great suggestion, and I would be happy to, if you want to forward me or point me to the list that you just went over, and also look at the differences in the website versus what we have in our records, and try to consolidate. And actually, I just looked on the GIS map that we were looking at earlier. There's 21 records for conservation easements, so there's another number.
Yeah, so just try to figure out the official list.
Yeah, I think that would be a good starting point. And then like you said, you've identified 11 easements that are potentially missing information, and I'd be happy to look at those as well and see if I can go through the land records and find any other information. Although I will say, with your background, I'm pretty confident that you've done due diligence on these data gaps. So yeah, Patrick, I'm happy to, I'll jump in there with you if you want to. You and I can coordinate, and we can present our further findings at the next board meeting.
Sure.
I also wanted to offer that I'm happy also to either look at your list, or sit down with you and look, and because I might know about some of them and know whether we actually think they're an easement or not, and some of them might be some of the ones that are called and we don't have documentation for, maybe it's something that we don't even really care about because it's just a visual line of trees that was a visual buffer. So we could just be let's not even bother trying to track that down. We'll just say it's not an easement. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
what I'll do is I have a spreadsheet of my easement review. I'll email it to you and Jack, Karen, if that's okay.
Can I take a look at it too?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Patrick, maybe you can just circulate it to the board, and I don't know if we include Racine and Ashley and Jackie on that, but I don't see why not if anybody else is interested. But yeah, that would be great. And Karen, I think you made a really good point that this exercise ties into other questions and kind of work that we've been doing of, do we need to be, what is a conservation easement? Are some of these smaller like strips of trees, does that really constitute an easement? Is that really something that we should be, responsible for? And I know that question's come up before, so I think this effort ties into other things that we've been looking into. So that was a good point. Thank you. All right, that sounds good. So Patrick, we'll circulate that, and we can continue this discussion. Okay. Moving on to encouraging preservation of environmentally sensitive land. Again, I think this kind of ties back to some of the other things that we've talked about. I don't really have anything new here to discuss as far as new business goes. I've got the potential new easements on there and outreach opportunities. I'll just say that I met with the Save Our Trees group and also Amy Clements of the Spa Creek Conservancy. A few weeks ago, we met at the Chesapeake Children's Museum, where we are supporting a volunteer English ivy and invasive species removal event. That event is scheduled for April the 13th. So just about a month from today. It's a Saturday. I think it's just the morning. And the Save Our Trees group has been really effective. For those who don't know, they organize volunteers in the community, mostly in Annapolis, to come out to areas of land that are overgrown with English ivy, and they save the trees by cutting the ivy around the base of the tree and effectively killing the vines that are growing up and choking the tree. So, we've discussed this before. I just wanted to share that update that I met with them. We've got a date scheduled. I will circulate an invitation when I get it from Save Our Trees, and hopefully, if anyone's available, I'm planning on being there. So hopefully we can get as many folks out as we can. And I think the idea there is to have this volunteer event, and then Save Our Trees was talking about, with the amount of invasive species besides ivy that's there, they're actually interested in potentially hiring a professional vegetation management crew to come through and do some other removal of invasive species. So there's probably more to come there, but that's kind of the pilot project with Save Our Trees on a city easement at the Chesapeake Children's Museum, which is right up by the headwaters of Spa Creek. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully some of us can make it out to their event. But that's all I have there, unless anybody had any other discussion items. Okay, under further implementing goals for improving water quality, I think this kind of ties into a lot of the other things that we've talked about. I mean, even Karen, you mentioned there's a wetland on that Gardens of Annapolis non-easement easement. Karen, I don't know if you had anything here. You graciously offered to kind of serve as the water quality improvement guru at our last meeting, which we're very grateful for. I don't know that we have any pressing business to discuss there, Karen, but I will turn it over to you if you have anything.
I mean, I don't have anything super specific, but I guess in my mind, goal, I see it as sort of how can we tie opportunities to implement water quality improvements where conservation easements exist, or where we're thinking about putting conservation easements. So like, for like the headwaters of College Creek, where it's in the city's watershed implementation plan to potentially do water quality improvement project in the conservation easement area. So so just like looking for those opportunities is sort of where I envision this objective heading. But I don't have anything other than that specifically.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Karen. And I know that's the area that we visited before as a board. I'm not sure if Patrick was on the board at that time, but I know that we visited that specific area you're talking about off of Brewer. It's like near Brewer Ave in Homewood, as a potential water quality focus and easement area. So I think with everything else that we have going on, I think it's great to keep this in mind and keep developing ideas for how we can improve water quality when we have an easement area we know has natural resources. But I think with everything else that we're doing, it seems like it's hard to do everything all at once. So I'm okay with moving on from the goals for water quality, but keeping it in mind as we take other actions. Providing for development of additional recreation resources of the city. Public water access. I know we brought this up last meeting with the member of the public that we had, Bill Borwigan, I believe. And he was, concerned about what the Conservancy Board is doing for public water access. I don't have any updates here. I know that there was a task force that the city had organized and there were a few meetings held. I think Eric Lashinsky was leading those meetings about how the city can increase public water access. I believe there's something contemplated for the Elktonia Cars Beach for public water access. But I don't have anything else for discussion under that duty.
Jack?
Yes.
I spoke to Eric Lashinsky about the water access plan.
Mhm.
And he said that he hopes that it'll be finalized by the end of April.
By the end of April?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Racing, that's a great update. Thank you. Okay, well, that will give us something to look at. It may be worth reaching out to Eric, as a board, reaching out to Eric and seeing if there's anywhere that we can, potentially be able to, I don't know if there'll be a public comment period, Racine. I'm not sure if but, a way for us to at least be able to provide any feedback that we may have on the public water access plan.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a public comment.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, that's encouraging. The last item I have here is updates to new business. I have new board members. I have been thinking about new board members, knowing that, Joanna has left the board and that Trudy has expressed, also stepping down from the board. I have identified a suggestion, not a nomination, for a new board member who I believe would be really valuable to this board. They have a, excuse me, they have a background in conservation finance and like green financing. And they're currently, excuse me, working on stream riparian buffer easements. And so I think that a lot of their experience would be really valuable to bring onto the board. So I'm going to take the action to reach out to Hillary with this person. Their name is Erin McCready, as a suggestion for a new board member, and we'll keep everybody informed of the status there.
That's great.
And-
Thanks, Jack.
Of course. And if anyone else has ideas of other board members, I think it sounds like from what Tripp said, the council and the city really is grateful for any suggestions that we may have. So I think everybody is all ears, but hopefully, I talked with Aaron and, told him a little bit about the work that we do and the expectations and how he could bring value to the board. And he got back to me and said that he was interested. And I told him I would reach out and figure out what the process was for, for him to join the board or potentially join the board. So I will suggest him to Hillary, like Tripp mentioned, and keep everybody in the loop.
And I know that the city's gonna want a resume. So you could go ahead and proactively tell him
Thank you, Karen. I
that
will.
Hillary's gonna need his resume.
Okay. Making a note real quick. All right. Well, that is all I have for this evening. I would open the floor up to any new business or other discussion, but that's it for me.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention that on Tuesday, there's a public meeting about Hawkins Cove and the city's plans for Hawkins Cove. And I know the board's been interested in that in the past. We're hoping to put some, we have monitored that parcel, the city parcel there as an easement in the past, even though it's not an easement. And we're hoping that there'll be easements incorporated into this project. So I'm gonna attend, but just wanted to mention it. I think it's at like 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, I think at the Pip Moyer Center.
Yeah, the
Um,
tip.
That's Tuesday the 19th, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Is there a flyer or any like an Evite? I'll put it on my calendar right now, but it's at 5:30.
I'm not sure if there's, I know it's on the Hawkins Page landing page that on the city website. Eric Lichtenstein, I know, coordinated that
Okay.
meeting. I'm sure we'll push it out again via social media too. I'll ask Mitchell, see how we're advertising that. I'm sure
Okay.
we're advertising more than just putting it on our website on the landing page.
Thanks, Jackie. Mostly just so that I don't show up at the wrong time or the wrong
Yeah,
place.
because I remember I looked on it today on the landing page and it said March 19th at Pip Moyer, but I didn't see the time. And I was like, okay. But I didn't click like on, can't remember if there was a link on it or not. And I didn't go further than that. So I'll look to see if there's any more info there.
That would be great. Thank you. And if not, I'm just gonna go linger around Pitmore and maybe do some track runs if the meeting's not going on yet. All right. Any other new discussion, new business for the
I
board?
have an announcement.
Yes, Racine. I hope you're feeling better too, by the way.
Oh, I'm feeling much better.
Good. I'm
Much
glad.
better.
Glad to hear it.
This is my last meeting with the Conservancy Board. I've accepted a position in planning and zoning.
We're so happy for you, Racine. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
more sad than happy, but I'm happy for you. That is
Yeah, yeah. I will get you these meeting minutes. Also, I wanted to ask you about your next meeting. This is March, April. It would be in May.
right.
Do you want to meet in person or do you want, because I can go ahead and make that arrangement at the Pip Moyer Rec Center, or you can still go virtual.
I mean, I've always been okay with meeting virtual, but I think the board decided that we wanted to have every other meeting in person for the time being. So according to that, we would meet in person at Pitmore for our May meeting. That would be great, Racing. So will we still, I guess we'll have a different city liaison.
You're stuck with me for now. So that means that I will be advertising for a new environmental programs coordinator.
Okay.
So I will be looking at that that's on my plate to look at that position and look at the responsibilities and duties. Go over that with HR and get that position advertised.
Well, not sure how the board could help. I'm sure we would be happy to, but I would be happy to, once there is a position announcement to, get it out through.
I'll make sure I share that with everybody.
Any way that I can. Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. All right. Well, that's all the business that we have for this evening.
Tom,
Should we vote on those meeting minutes before we go, since we're allowed to?
Oh yeah. Okay, back to our
Jack,
first.
I see Tom has his hand up.
Oh, Tom. Hi, Tom. All right. We're gonna vote on these meeting minutes from January the 11th. Or can we also do the November meeting minutes?
Believe you already voted on January the 11th.
Oh, excuse me, we did. So
It's
November.
November 9th, 2023.
So I move to approve the November 9th meeting minutes and look for a second.
A second.
All in favor of approving the November 9th meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. All right, Tom, I'm not sure if you can take yourself off of mute, but I think our meeting is about to adjourn. Unless we have some new business. All right, I'm going to move to adjourn our meeting and we will meet next time in May on May the 16th.
16?
So we'll plan to meet on May the 16th at Pip Moyer in person.
Right, I'll confirm that it's the meeting is set for Pit Moyer. I'll
Thank you,
confirm.
Racine, and we will miss you as
Well,
our
thank you.
as our city liaison, but very excited for you with your new role. Congratulations.
Just Jack, though, keep in mind though, if you're gonna set that for in person, I come straight from environmental matters and like as in today, we went way over. We're supposed to go from 3 to 5 and we went way, way over. So
Maybe we
Okay.
should just do video.
yeah, we might maybe just do video again for me.
That's fine with me.
Hey,
I may not
Jackie,
have that position filled by then. I really hope to, but we'll see.
Jackie, we don't have an environmental matters schedule for May 16th.
We don't.
No, there's a work session that day instead.
Oh, okay. Woo. Well, I'll probably be there too. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
So
We're gonna stay with Pip Moyer.
no, I think we'll go virtual for now.
Okay, okay.
That works. All right,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
all you've done for us, Racine.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Racine.
Racine.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you,
Racine.
thank you guys.
All right, and thanks, Ashley, for your help, Jackie, for your help, and all the helpful
welcome.
background. Thanks, Julien.
Oh, also, your date was wrong. That's why. The 9th is the next meeting.
Okay.
And there is environmental matters.
Yes. So there you go.
There we
It
go.
always falls on the same day. Yeah.
There we go. All right, well, it's 6:51 and I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, board. Thank you, city folks. We will see you in May.
Okay.